Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne Hume with cleanearthforkids.org. We're here today with Sydney, and I'm real excited to hear what Sydney has to say. Go ahead, Sydney.
Hi, I'm really excited to be here too, and thanks for having me. Today, I want to talk about environmental racism. Some of you may know that the Trump administration has rolled back a- approximately 100 environmental protections and regulations so far, and this is detrimental to our future generations and to our planet, and especially, believe it or not, to predominantly people of color. Last night, when I was doing research, I found that Black people are more than 50% more likely to be exposed to toxic pollutants in the air, exposed to coal mines or oil facilities, petroleum facilities, all that kind of pollution than white people. This results in many different health problems, respiratory, and possibly an increased risk of cancer for predominantly Black and Brown communities. By rolling back many different protections and laws that are supposed to give all people a voice, that are supposed to promote large environmental reviews before having new pipeline or oil projects or whatever happen in many cities. This is another blatant and shameful example of the systematic racism that is being shown in our country. For many years, the Black community has suffered systematic racism, and unfortunately, now climate change is going to affect people of color more than white communities because there are poorer communities and communities that are under the poverty line. They may not have as much of a voice or may not have as much money to file lawsuits or to go to lawyers. So oftentimes these communities are constantly stuck with having to live with so many different chemicals like mercury being spewed into their air and to their communities that is causing them many health problems. By rolling back environmental protections, we are blatantly sending a message to the Black community and communities of color that they are lesser than other communities, which is very wrong. I point this out today because if we want to fight for racial justice and if we want to promote a Black Lives Matter movement, we must not leave it out that environmental issues are affecting Black people more than white people. We must address the environmental and racial gaps that are being promoted in this country. Everyone must do their part to fight against the Trump administration's rollbacks in regards to NEPA, which is the National Environmental Protection Act, because by rolling back NEPA, we are literally taking the voice away from so many people so that they won't know what dangerous new projects are going to be implemented in their communities. And this could affect communities of color more. And if people don't know what's going on, then they can't speak up. And then there is more potential for more people to experience hazardous environments, potentially environments that could be combustible. So, in regards to the "I can't breathe" phrase that was said by George Floyd, well, I'm sure that a lot of these African American communities, communities of color, are silently saying, "I can't breathe." We can make all the difference by saying no to these rollbacks, by filing lawsuits, and by making very loud noise like we did when George Floyd was killed to not let the Trump administration roll back NEPA, to give these communities a voice. We must break the cycle of the silencing and oppression of these poor communities and communities of color. We must make it a clean earth, no matter where people grow up, no matter what the color of their skin is. And I encourage you to do some research in regards to the rollbacks and to do what you can, sign petitions, call your Congress people, maybe file a lawsuit, spread it on social media that these rollbacks cannot continue and we must keep NEPA. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Sydney, thank you so much for that important information and insight. What else would you like to add?
So I would also like to add another critical factor that I found out. Sadly, people who live in communities and environments that are subjected to more pollution are more likely to die of COVID-19. It has been studied that COVID-19 as of right now is affecting Black communities and communities of color the most. The fact of the matter is that it is essential that we do everything we can to not let this very cruel tsunami of rollbacks happen, that we do everything we can to block these rollbacks and to stand up for our environment, the only earth that we have, and especially given the fact that it is specifically going to impact one race more than the other. And as a person who has friends who are African American, I can imagine losing them to stuff like this. So I hope that many of you can take this into consideration and to realize that George Floyd is not the only one that could have been feeling or saying, "I can't breathe," up until the day that he died. That many of these communities are having respiratory problems and health problems and slowly going through the fact that they can't breathe because of the chemicals in the air and the environmental racism and systematic racism that occurs in this country. We have got to stop this shameful cycle of treating Black and brown communities like they're nothing. And we need to realize that maybe if we give them more economic opportunities and give them more equal opportunities, then maybe the poverty rate and the crime rate will be lower in those communities. So if we can promote an environmental and systematic equal US and environmental and systematic equal world, then it could actually benefit all of us. Thanks for listening.